Hello friends and welcome back to House Props. This is the last part of the IG-12 build where I will show you how I painted this entire piece. So without any more introduction, let's get started. Alright, now that the build is complete, we can get IG ready for painting. First, I cover the Plasti Dip with some masking tape, that way the foam will remain translucent. Next, the entire droid can be heat sealed with a heat gun. This seals up the foam so it can receive paint better and not need as many layers of paint for coverage. Once everything is heat sealed, I start to clean up any seams that need a little attention. I begin by using a smooth sanding stone on my Dremel and lightly smooth the seam. These areas can then be heat sealed again very quickly. While I do this, I would appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you can receive notifications when new projects are released. Once the seams are smooth, I took some of this Quick Seal Plus to fill in the little gap. I apply this with a palette knife, and then dip my finger in a little water and rub the area to smooth out the quick seal. Making sure I have all the LED light areas covered, I will coat everything, the wood, the foam, the PVC, with Plasti Dip. 2 coats should do it, and it will give an even surface of the same texture for the paint to stick to. Once all the Plasti Dip dried overnight, I mixed some white acrylic with some black and added a little bit of yellow ochre, and thinned this with some rubbing alcohol and brushed this onto the piece with the LED light holes. The alcohol thins the paint but also evaporates quickly, so you are able to get a smooth surface with a brush, and the thinning liquid will evaporate quickly and the paint won't run. You could also use an airbrush if you want super even coverage, it will just take it a little longer to paint. Here I'm using charcoal gray to paint the wrist and hands. A lot of the droid gets based with this charcoal gray. I will show you special cases where other colors were used as we go along. Next, I mixed a light gray and added a little bit of yellow ochre to it. This was then painted onto this piece of the head, as well as this interior cone. I also painted this 2mm foam band with the same color. It was also used on the forearms. The bicep area of the arms is painted with a tan I mixed from white, yellow ochre, and a little burnt umber. I needed to apply 2 coats to get even smooth coverage. And since I was using rubbing alcohol as the thinning agent, I was able to apply the second layer fairly quickly. Next, all the joint covers can be painted with some burnt umber. These areas are meant to have flex for IG's joints, so I'm going to make these look like an old rubber. And again, if you thin your paint with rubbing alcohol, you can really get smooth paint jobs when using a brush. Next, I took some sterling silver and using a cloth, I pounced this across all the metal surfaces except the tan areas. This will start to give a dimpling effect that will look like a metal surface when we're finished. You can also achieve the same effect with a round bristle brush. The brush works a little better getting into all the small details where a rag won't fit as easily. The strips on the upper arm get the same treatment, but you want to avoid hitting the tan surface as much as possible. Next, I'm using this metallic antique copper. This gets applied to the shoulders the same way as the sterling silver. After the sterling has dried, we want to tone down the silver aspect of the paint and make it look more like steel. To do this, I'm brushing on a black wash and then dab the surface with a cloth. You can see here how when the wash dries, it tones down the silver dramatically. This band of foam that has the light holes in it needs to be a little darker, so I'm going to apply a second coat to this area but not to the screw heads or the other details. Those will remain one coat. The same black wash can be applied to the burnt umber joint covers, and then dab away the excess so the majority of the remaining paint is left in the creases. Then I make a burnt umber wash and brush this onto the tan areas like the upper arms and the backpack. The whole surface doesn't need covered, but having this where the planes shift implies that dirt and debris has accumulated in these areas. Then these can be pounced and wiped with a rag to vary the mark making. You can also use the same paint and technique on the metal surfaces. It adds some variation to the metal, but also adds another layer of aging and weathering. It doesn't have to be an all-over wash, just in areas where this sort of weathering would happen. To add some variation in the coloring, I mix some burnt sienna and raw umber into a wash and only apply this in some spots and then dab just like before. This will give some extra aging and texture as well as color variation. Keeping brush marks sporadic and random will help with this as well. I also take the same color and flick it onto a lot of the droid except the head with a bristle brush. You could also use an old toothbrush if you have one handy. This yet again just adds more texture and variation to the droid. To add some paint chipping or metal dinged areas, I start by taking a small round brush and some light gray and create these jagged shapes and spots and around the edges. Then using a burnt umber, I create some shadow lines along the edges of the gray shapes. You don't want solid lines because it will begin to look cartoony, so vary your pressure on the brush and break up the lines. And with that, the life-size IG-12 is finally complete. This has been the largest foam build I have ever taken on, and throughout the process there have been times that I thought to myself, holy shit, what have I taken on? But here at the end of it, I'm super thrilled I did. As you saw in this video, there weren't a lot of colors happening, but what took so long to paint was that there is so much surface area to cover and several layers of technique to achieve the final result, but the time spent on all these details is worth it. And there you have it, IG-12 is officially finished. A few modifications to some of the pieces. You could have IG-11, you could also change it up a little bit and have IG-88, but I wanted IG-12 because I wanted a place where I could display this Grogu figure. I hope you enjoyed this series of videos. If you did, please give them a thumbs up, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to House of Props. And remember, if you are building any of my builds or using any of my templates, feel free and tag me at House of Props on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, because I would really like to see your fantastic work. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.